of 7 folks between the Chamber and the EDA. We looked at approximately 70 resumes or so and narrowed it down to 4 candidates. These days, anytime you put a job out there on the internet, it automatically becomes a national search. So we did have a candidate out of Minnesota and a couple of other candidates from right here in Berry County. Very highly qualified folks. Just across the board, I think we could have chosen any one of the 4, but it was unanimous in the board immediately after meeting Ms. Heinzman and talking with her a little bit about her experience and her background, that she was the right fit. She's done some great things in her career with Chambers, winning the Chamber of the Year Award in Mecosta County. In her last role, she also did quite a bit of the same things that the EDA is doing with workforce development and some other economic development alliance things. So it was a great fit, great well-rounded background, and she very quickly rose to the top and was the unanimous choice of the committee. So very pleased to present Ms. Jennifer Heinzman.
Thank you.
Experience in economic development has really been a 30,000-foot approach. In my last community, I handled things, big issues, childcare, transportation, broadband, those kinds of things. And then when I got here, I see that all of those things are happening through other organizations. So now I'm going to redefine myself a little bit, I guess, and go to more of an individualized approach. So I've been spending this month, I officially just got started last Monday. The first week I purged and painted and made the space my own. But now we're out there. I'm going out and meeting everybody in all of the various committees. Today I'm spending the day in Today I'm spending the day in Delton. I've already been and spent a day in Middleville and plan on taking this time to get to know everybody, get to know everything about the community that I can. And as far as the chamber goes, I'd like to start with a survey, see what the members want. What I'm hearing is that people want it to be more business focused and a little bit less event focused. So I'm going to send a survey, see if that is the case, and then we will go from there. But I am very excited to be here, and I can't wait to get working with all of you. So thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Welcome. Our next presentation is Allison Troyer-Wiswell from the Blue Zones.
Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to give an update of what we're doing so far with Blue Zones Activate Berry County. I want to say I am so thankful for your support and partnership through this. From September till now, I'm really appreciative. I wrote down some things because a lot of things have been happening since we last met. So we put out our press release to the nation in September of 2019, and we had 120 national media pickups from that, and we had 10 articles locally. We established our landing page, so that is bluezones.com, Activate Berry County, and we've also established a Facebook page as well. There's a number of free tools on our landing page that anybody in the county can utilize. So we have the True Vitality Test, which will give you a predicted longevity age. Some folks say, I don't want to know that. But what it does do then is give you some suggestions based on your behaviors that you reported in, that you can increase your longevity by adding different pieces to the puzzle. And they also have a True Happiness Test as well, same kind of concept. There's a 4-week Blue Zones challenge that is accessible to anybody. I think it's great in groups, so work sites could utilize that. There's also 20 pages of plant-based recipes, and so as we're trying to increase our plant-based consumption, we encourage people to take advantage of those. You can even look up an item, say you have zucchini and you want to use it, you can type it in, search for it, and it'll pull up all the recipes that utilize that item.
You know, we don't have to make a zucchini bread anymore.
We don't have to make a zucchini bread anymore.
It's the only way I'll eat it.
But I do love the message that Dan Buettner has said. He just released a cookbook in January, but he said, you know, if you can find 5 or 6 plant-based recipes that you really enjoy and build those into your rotation, you are increasing your plant consumption. And I think that is a great message. So And then in January, we launched our free online courses for Blue Zones, and those are video courses taught by Dan Buettner, who's the founder of Blue Zones. Those are video series as well as discussion and journaling opportunities for anybody in Berry County. It's free. You just need your zip code, and then you get free access. It's a two-part series talking about the Power 9, as well as thinking about our environments in our home and our work life, and how we can reshape those to increase our activity or increase healthy access in our homes. And it's nice because you can take it in chunks. So you can do 5 minutes and come back to it another time and do another 5 minutes. Or you can sit and do the whole thing at one time if you have 2 hours to spare. I'm guessing most commissioners don't have 2 hours. There's also a monthly electronic newsletter that anybody can sign up for on the landing page. So that will go out each month and give you updates of what's happening locally, as well as some great tips. We've created our governance, so we have a steering committee as well as a built environment committee and food systems committee. Those are 48 members strong, so I really worked hard to build a good representation across the county on those committees. I think that's an important piece in terms of this work. In the discovery phase of the process, we had both built environment experts, which Mark Fenton and Danielle Schaffner got the opportunity to come and speak with you all. And then also Maggie Adamek, who is our food systems expert. They came in October and November. And from those visits, then they produced reports, which I sent to you all. And they gave us basically what's happening currently and also some recommendations. And those recommendations are more than what we're going to do, but it's kind of a starting point. Okay, so we've completed discovery phase. Now we're moving into development. So thinking about those recommendations, and we're moving into summits, which are coming up in the end of March. March 31st will be the Built Environment Summit. You'll all get an invite this week to that. That is from 8 to noon at Pierce Cedar Creek Institute. The Food Systems Summit will be held at BCF on April 30th from 8 to noon as well. So similar content. We want to really talk to elected officials and those that are in those recommendations, those groups that are a part of those. And we want to talk demographically as well as topically and see what of those recommendations rises to the top for us as a community. Page 1 down. So they've formulated those reports. We've communicated those out to the committees. And, sorry, I jumped ahead of myself. So we're looking to develop one marquee project for each area. So a marquee project for built environment as well as food systems. And then also doing some demonstration or pop-up projects in each of the areas. Those will be lower cost projects, but also a way for areas to experience a change and see how that feels to them. And then from that, looking at policies that will align with those in terms of thinking about foundational sustainability. In terms of creating awareness and inclusion, I formed a champion network. So I have gotten representatives from all the townships, villages, city to report monthly on what's happening with Blue Zones.
That is such an impressive feat. I don't know if it's ever been done.
Because it's just me, right? So I felt like there's no way. And sometimes there's 3 township meetings in one night. So I just can't do it all. And for those areas, there were only, I think, 3 townships and 1 village that I didn't have representation from, just from, email and phone outreach. And so I went to those meetings and since have found a representative in each of the areas. So they'll be getting bulleted updates each month to be giving out to the township, villages, city, and I'm also CCing you all so you're in the know of what's going out each month. I just started last night hosting volunteer sessions, and those will be held around the county at the libraries. So last night we were at Hastings Public Library, and we sold out, and we had standing room only. We had 75 people come to engage in ways that they can volunteer to be a part of the Blue Zones initiative. So that was amazing and awesome, and I was so pleased to have so many people invested. Next month we'll be at the Delton District Library on March 26th from 6:30 to 7:30 doing that same thing, and my intention is to do those at all the libraries around the county. So And last but not least, we are doing a community kickoff scheduled for May 9th, and that will be from 9 to noon at the Berry Expo Center. And originally, in terms of our strategic plan, it was on the docket for January, but we kind of felt like weather-wise, January, I don't know if we're going to get great attendance. Plus, so many people are snowbirds and are away, so we thought May might be a better time to hold it. So May 9th, 9 to noon, Nick Butner will be coming in to speak to us about Activate Berry County, and we're currently working with our committees to have some fun interactive pieces to that. Let's see. We'll be also starting our grant exploration process in March, and Blue Zones will hire grant writers for us based on the topics that come to the top. And so I don't know about you all, but I'm really excited about that because if you've done grant writing, you know what that process is like. So anyway, I'm really excited for Berry County and being a part of Blue Zones. And since we are the first in Michigan, I think it is a big pat on our backs. So thank you for allowing me the time to speak and give updates. And I'm happy to take any questions that you might have.
Ben?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Allison, for your presentation. As somebody that represents part of the east side of the county, I know local leaders on that side were very pleased to have the Blue Zone team make an appearance at their meetings. So can you just comment on how the response has been in the kind of outlying areas of the county?
I think in most areas, even if in the initial phase, people are like, what is this? I don't know about this. By the end of the meeting, people are open and engaged and excited about being included. So that's been my experience.
Great.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Allison?
Just one. When you did the built environment kind of survey and then the food system survey, you take that information, that's not really an implementation thing, that's just informational at this point.
Right. That's just let's see what we have in the county currently. Let's see, from each of the areas, so focus groups in each of the areas in the county, what are the things that people are talking about, interests.
Okay. So at some point you take that information and either meet with the local township government officials, or in the case of the food environment, do you meet with the school boards? How do you start the process of change?
So that will be the
implementation?
summits.
Okay.
So the summits that are coming up, all of the people that are in those recommendations will be invited to participate in the summits.
Okay.
And so that's the piece where we start to develop the blueprint of what we're going to do going forward.
Okay, so it's a long process. It's not close to the implementation yet, but at least we've got a framework or a ground.
It may feel like a long process to you, but I feel like we have been going full steam. But yeah, so I think we really want to get collaborative input all together in a room, and see what seems to be the collective agreement.
Okay, will you do that individually as well with school systems and places like that, or is it more done broadly?
So it's done broadly. I'm doing presentations at any place that I'm asked to present. So people are getting the down low of what's happening. But then, yes, they'll go through the reports at the beginning of each summit as well, so people have that to build off of. And built environment, I should say, there's also a 101 training for anybody who has not had any exposure to the built environment, who maybe came into the recommendations but wasn't a part of a focus group. And that's being held in Middleville at the fire station in the training room.
Okay.
So the day before, March 30th, 6:30 to 7:30.
Have you been presenting to school districts or primarily just to different?
So I've been going to the superintendents and talking to them and seeing, getting their feedback about what's feasible, what their interests are, where they're in school boards, so they'll all be invited.
Awesome.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Great job. Keep it up.
Thanks.
Any other comments for Allison? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Next presentation this morning is Colleen Acker from the COA.
Good morning. At our Commission on Aging board meetings, we have a little deep dive into topics periodically. We call them a 5x5 presentation, where a staff member or a member of the community comes in and does 5 minutes of presentation, and then followed by 5 minutes of Q&A. So hopefully we'll have Allison up at some point to talk about Blue Zones. But Last month, our 5+5 presentation was Colleen doing the Art in Action program, and the board listened to the presentation and said, "Ooh, the commissioners really need to hear about this because it's a fabulous program and gives you a little idea and a little glimpse into one of the special things that we're doing at this point. And since we're in the process of recruiting, this is a good opportunity too." So Colleen is here. She actually responded last year to a call from the National Council on Aging for presentations to do at their conference in Washington, D.C. And she said, "Tammy, can I write a proposal for this, for the Art in Action program?" And I said, "Absolutely." So she wrote the presentation, submitted it to the National Council on Aging, and we were actually selected to present it at their annual conference in D.C. So she, on top of that, applied for a scholarship and was one of 30 people awarded for those scholarships out of hundreds and hundreds of applications. So really proud of what she's done in the presentation, and I think you'll enjoy hearing it too. Colleen Acker is our Senior Center Coordinator, coming up on 7 years with the COA, and I'm going to turn it over to her, and she has a PowerPoint too. Are you going to do that, Michael? Yeah. That'd be awesome. Thank you. Colleen.
Thank you. And kudos to Allison. I was at a conference last October, and I said to some of my East Side colleagues, "Hey, you know about Blue Zones, right?" And they're like, "What's Blue Zones?" So I thought, well, that's really cool, because that's Berry County, and I'm talking to East Side people, so that was pretty great. So good job. Very progressive. All right, so as Tammy said, I did this presentation in Washington, D.C. last year. It was a great honor to be able to do that. So what I'm going to give today is basically the same thing that I did last year. So the first slide is just what they used for their conference. You can go ahead and click to the next one. And that was ours, Art in Action, Immersion, Not Submersion. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Tammy talked a little bit about Berry County and where it was located and what our area was like and what our population was. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. And then she told them a little bit about the Commission on Aging and what type of services we provide. And then I got to go up. So this slide is mine. So where do I begin? I came into this project empty-handed, but my heart was full of a desire to bring something different to the Commission on Aging. Our area has lots of art enthusiasts, but there were not a lot of opportunities for low-income and seniors to be involved in art programs. So I really wanted to build something that was accessible, and by accessible I mean that it wouldn't be intimidating to people who maybe thought they weren't so great at art, but would still be interesting enough that people who do have a little more sense for that wouldn't feel like they were doing activities below their skill level. Also, I had no budget to work with. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So if I build it, will they come? As with any program, you have to think about what day you're going to have it, what time you're going to have it, if you have the space available to have the program on a regular basis. And the instructors were really key for this program as well. So I went to local galleries and looked at the pieces there and looked at things I thought might work well for the program and got contact information that way. I also went to the executive director of the Thornapple Arts Council and talked to her about people who might be interested in being involved in this program. The instructors are the ones who have the passion and the desire and the knowledge to be able to impart this information to other people. And the best thing about it is they are not motivated by money. So that helped me a lot when I didn't have a budget so much to work with. And as far as funding goes, I did find some funding with the Area Agency on Aging for the first year, and the second year applied for a grant from the Berry Community Foundation, and they granted us $1,750 for that year. Also, local businesses helped by donating space for our gallery night, and sometimes they even donated food. Another area that I looked into for support for this program was actually the participants, because there are some participants who are financially able to help keep this program going and keep it low cost for people. Go ahead. So the sessions for 2018 and 2019 look like this. Our coasters project was the most like a make and take of any project that we had done. It was nice that they did something and they were able to take it home and use it. Zentangle, if you're not familiar with it, has been called yoga for the brain. I call it doodling with a purpose, but what it is it's a lot of intricate designs that come together and often can make a larger object. And although this was a very economical session, because basically all you need is paper and pen, it was not that popular, and I think mainly because they're small designs and some of us have visual issues that make it a little more difficult, and maybe people just didn't get like what kind of designs that they should be making. We also had a stained glass presentation. A woman came in and brought some of her pieces that she had made. She also brought the tools that she needed, the supplies. She had handouts, she had resources, and really sparked an interest with quite a few of the participants. Okay, next slide. In 2019, we started off with a red clay project. The red clay was fairly easy to manipulate unless you had very arthritic hands. A lot of people said they enjoyed having the opportunity to do this project, but might not do it on a regular basis. It wasn't something that they would continue to do, but had fun doing it while we presented it. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So this is a picture of Betty. Betty is one of the participants of Art in Action, and I think we should all be more like Betty and not be afraid to get in there and get our hands dirty. Go ahead to the next slide. The multimedia project produced a lot of different colors, textures, and abstract designs, and it also produced a few learning opportunities for me. The first one being that when folks came into the room to start the program, they all gathered around the instructor's table. And there was one gentleman there who just was rapid fire questions at the instructor and completely overwhelmed the class. So I finally got everybody to go to their seats so that the instructor could start the class, and it just made me realize that maybe I need to be in there greeting them right away and getting them seated so that the instructors can do what they are there to do. All right, next slide. Also with this project, it's done in layers, so each time they finish one part of it, they have to go and dry it so that they can do the next part. We had several blow dryers stations set up around the room, and what happened was that several of the people were at the same step at the same time, so we had very many blow dryers going, and as you can imagine, we blew a fuse. So, note to self, not to have so many blow dryer stations going at once if we ever do this project again. The pouring technique has been very popular, and we will be doing it again for Art in Action 2020. Even seasoned artists love this because you get something different every time, and it's just a really fun and interesting project. Next slide. Now, it's not very much fun to watch paint dry, but it is fun to watch it pour. And I have this picture up because I wanted to show how we used paper box tops to kind of contain the mess of this project. The canvas is inside the paper box top on little push pins so that the paint can just spill over. And then we can also use the paper box tops to move the canvases to another area for drying because they do have to dry overnight. Next slide. The field trip to the Detroit Institute of Art was highly anticipated for this group. The Detroit Institute of Art is the 12th largest art museum in the United States and has over 65,000 works of art. As you probably know, Detroit is about 2.5 hours away from the Commission on Aging, so having a comfy ride there was pretty important, and that's where the grant money came in. The grant from the Berry Community Foundation paid for the motor coach. It also paid for the admission to the museum, and I still had a little bit of money left over for gallery night. A side note to this, I did also sell some extra seats on the bus as a fundraiser to continue to put money into Art in Action, just to keep that cost low for everyone. In the picture there, we have 3 of the participants standing in front of the Assumption of the Virgin, which was painted in 1650 by Guercino. And on a personal note, the lovely lady there in the middle is my grandma, Jane Blau. She turned 90 last year and was very intimidated about going on this trip because there was so much walking. But with a lot of support and encouragement, she did go, and she had a great time. Our speaker last year was Richard Schlatter. He was the 2017 Public Vote Grand Prize winner of Art Prize. Now, his piece that he entered with was very impressive. It was Abraham Lincoln, made out of pennies entirely, 24,000 pennies, dating from 1909 to 2017. The piece weighs over 400 pounds and is 12 feet tall. So not only was that very interesting, he also had some great behind-the-scenes stories about Art Prize and what it was like finding a venue. The artist doesn't just get to say, hey, I want to put my painting here. The venue also has to choose the artist. And he talked a lot about meeting all the public and what a very positive experience that was. So I think overall it was a very memorable presentation for the participants. Next slide. Gallery night. Gallery night is a social event at the very end of the Art in Action program. It gives the participants a sense of pride and accomplishment. They bring their art pieces and we display them. We have drinks, we have a little food, we have entertainment. The entertainment I usually try to keep off the beaten path. The first year we had some Irish music. The second year we had a folk duo, and this year we are going to have a guitarist. So it's just a really nice social gathering of these folks who have just spent, 6 weeks together getting to know each other. There is a door prize usually at gallery night, though it's not anything that's ever worked into the budget. Usually about 2 weeks before gallery night, something shows up and I say, hey, that would make a great door prize. So that's usually how that works. Next slide. At the end of 2019 Art in Action, I did take a survey, and as you can see, got some very positive results. People said 100% of the projects were interesting enough without being too complicated. 75% said the program improved their knowledge of art, and I can't see the numbers. 56 said it increased their social confidence. And as you can see, the numbers were very positive and very encouraging, and I hope to continue to collect that information as we move forward with this program. So what is the big deal? We're all familiar with the issues of aging. Isolation. People don't get out enough. They don't meet new people. They don't socialize. Mental stagnation, not learning new things, not having their minds stimulated. Lack of confidence. Lack of confidence can come from a variety of things. It can come from retirement. It can come from loss of a spouse. These are things that are very much tied with who we are, and when we lose those things, sometimes we lose a part of ourselves. Health concerns and issues can also cause a lack of confidence. Life just starts to seem a little bit blah. Art programs are addressing these issues with proven results. Not yet. They encourage socialization, decrease depression, and health-related concerns. They stimulate brain activity and create happiness. Okay, happiness is kind of hard to prove, but facilitating art in action makes me happy, so that's proof, right? So I am very encouraged and excited about the research that is being done in this area. There is an article in today's Geriatric Medicine that says, neurological research shows that making art can improve cognitive functions by producing both new neural pathways and thicker, stronger dendrites. Thus, art enhances cognitive reserve, helping the brain actively compensate for pathology by using more efficient brain networks or alternative brain strategies. Making art or even viewing art causes the brain to continue to reshape, adapt, and restructure thus expanding the potential to increase brain reserve capacity. So again, very exciting information, and I hope that we will continue to see more of this that shows that the arts really do improve people's health and well-being. Are there any questions?
Any questions for Colleen? I did notice I got the Smithsonian magazine this week, and there was an article about Grandma Moses,
Ah,
who did not start her art career until she was 70. They actually used her as a tool in the Cold War. And they took her art exhibit to Europe, and she was an ambassador to show the positive aspects of American culture. So that was kind of an interesting read. So
cool.
any other comments for Colleen?
You said that you presented this in Washington, D.C. What was the venue? Or what was the purpose?
It was the National Council on Aging Convention.
Wow.
So it was a week-long convention where there are many, many different presentations that all of us who are involved in this industry went to and learned different things and saw what other innovative ideas people had.
Well, thank you for your leadership, and it's an honor for all of us in Berry County to have somebody representing us down there.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Oh,
Dan?
yes.
Colleen is also on our new Parks Commission, and she is on the board, and she's also our secretary this year. So,
Yes.
yep, Thursday night.
I'll see you then.
But who pays for the materials on this? Do the individual people throw in their money for this?
Yes,
It's a
yes, there is a fee.
Fee for it,
Yes,
yeah.
for the program is 6 weeks, I can't even talk. It's 6 weeks long. It's $30 a person.
Okay, all right, that's pretty reasonable.
It's a nice investment because that population, if they're going to pay $30 for something, they're going to follow through with it.
Yes.
Whereas my kids, if they paid $30 for it, they'd be like, "Oh, mom's got 30 more." Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Public hearings this morning, we have none. We are to items for consideration.
Item A, approval of claims in the amount of $86,189.84.
Second.
Moved by Gibson, second by Smelker. For approval of claims in the amount of $86,189.84. Discussion. Hearing no discussion, the question, I already read that. The clerk will call the roll.
Geiger.
Yes.
Gibson.
Yes.
Jackson.
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
Smelker.
Yes.
Connor.
Yes.
Wing.
Yes, the item is approved.
Item B, adoption of Resolution 20-09, resolution to initiate lake-level projects for Cloverdale Lake, Wilkinson Lake, Jones Lake, and Mud Lake.
Support.
Moved by Gibson, support by Jackson. Discussion. Hearing none, the question before the committee is the adoption of Resolution 20-9, resolution to initiate lake-level project for Cloverdale Lake, Wilkinson Lake, Jones Lake, and Mud Lake. The clerk will call the roll.
Gibson.
Yes.
Jackson.
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
Smelker.
Yes.
Connor.
Yes.
Geiger.
Yes.
Wing.
Yes, the item is approved.
Item C, adoption of Resolution 20-10, resolution to initiate lake-level projects for Long Lake.
Support.
Moved by Gibson, support by Jackson. Discussion. Hearing none, the question before the board is approval of Resolution 20-10, resolution to initiate lake-level project for Long Lake. The clerk will call the roll.
Jackson.
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
Smelker.
Yes.
Connor.
Yes.
Geiger.
Yes.
Gibson.
Yes.
Wing.
Yes, the item is approved.
Item E, approval to create an ad hoc committee to study the Commission on Aging services compared to other counties and report back to the commissioners.
You skipped item D.
I skipped item D? Oh, okay. Let's go back to item D. Skipped it. Trying to get out of here, I guess.
I see.
Item D, Approval of attached MERS 457 participation agreement amendment to permit Roth deferral contributions.
Second.
Moved by Gibson, second by Parker. Discussion. Hearing none, the question before the board is approval of the attached MERS 457 participation agreement amendment to permit Roth deferral contributions. The clerk will call the roll.
Parker,
Yes.
Smelker,
Yes.
Connor,
Yes.
Geiger,
Yes.
Gibson,
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
Wing.
Yes, the item is approved.
Item E, approval to create an ad hoc committee to study the Commission on Aging services compared to other counties and report back to the commissioners.
Second.
Moved by Gibson, support by Smelker. Discussion.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Commissioner Geiger?
Thank you. I apologize that I wasn't here last week for the discussion, but I think you'll all say it was a good thing because I had the flu. Or maybe you would say it was a good thing no matter my health. But either way, I was, we received this, all received this letter in our mailboxes today from Sandy Kozan, who's the chairperson of the Commission on Aging Board, and I think it's really a message that shows that the individuals we support are listening to what the people want, and they are committed to doing what's good for taxpayers. At the February 2020 regular meeting of the Berry County Commission on Aging Board of Directors, discussion took place regarding the future of the COA building millage on the upcoming ballot. Throughout the Tower Pinkster process, we have heard strong community and commission support for both the Commission on Aging building project and a jail sheriff's department project. We also heard reluctance among the taxpayers to pay additional millage. As a result, from our meeting, the following motion was made. Motion by Tassava, supported by Zabrowski, to request the Board of Commissioners find a way to fund a new COA building without putting a millage vote on the ballot. We appreciate your efforts on behalf of the older adults of Berry County and pledge our commitment to work with you on this difficult but important topic. So it's not every day you have an appointed board of officials say, help us do our job, but please don't raise the taxes. So I think it's a tribute to the COA board for passing that motion. And therefore, in response to the COA's request to not have a ballot question, Madam Chair, I move to substitute the pending motion with the following. Michael does have this language, and he will put it on the screen. Motion to create an ad hoc committee on senior services to study and report on options for new and better space for senior services, which A, COA can staff and afford, and B, do not require higher taxes. Number 2, senior services offered to other counties, and 3, marketing and branding trends in senior service facilities. I offer this motion just to give the group a little clarity and to, again, recognize the pro-taxpayer wishes of the COA board.
Is there support for the amendment?
Can't we have discussion on the original?
Is there support for the amendment?
I'll support for conversation.
Okay, the amendment is supported. Discussion.
Well, I don't know if I want to just discuss that amendment, the new amendment, but I guess if that's, I'm limited to that. I will think it's very important that we have people on that ad hoc committee that is going to be familiar with what senior activities are, all the way from senior daycare to pickleball courts, okay? And I just think that we need someone, and in fact, probably someone that is up to date on all these things, such as Tammy, that would be on this committee, so we're not So if something comes up, we have and they have already been through this, because one of the most frustrating things is that when this ad hoc committee is talking about these different activities other places have and all that, and there's already history that's been checked out, you want to know that and not waste the time. Or you might get a better opinion of what is going on that way too. So, things, I always believe in letting other people make the mistakes before you make them. And so you can see that you're going to not have to redo something in the future. And so I think we need to have point people on there that really are understanding what a COA is about and what it, I don't know how I want to put this, what would be the best way to go for our COA in that regard. And I think, it's a combination of the whole ad hoc committee, including commissioners, that we, if there's an agreement to check on something else, and fine, but if it's been already done, and we don't want to waste our time on it either, too. So I'd like to have people that are going to be on this committee that will be very knowledgeable in that senior citizens services.
Thank you. Commissioner Smelker?
I believe that the ad hoc committee ought to be just commissioners, and they can bring in whoever they want.
Commissioner Gibson?
I think this study that you're talking about, visiting other COAs, was done 8 to 10 years ago, but things change over time.
Right.
So there's really nothing wrong with doing it again with another ad hoc committee.
Commissioner Jackson?
I agree.
that
I just
vote.
want to be sure with Ben's motion, his amendment, that you're not too focused, that you don't feel like you're limiting the opportunity for this board to explore, to take a look at various things, because, when we do something, I think Commissioner Parker's thoughts are well intended, but by the same token, I don't think any of you guys were experts on the health department before you got involved in that. And sometimes I think it's better to have a clean slate, to take all that information and put it in there and really evaluate objectively everything. If everybody on the board's already got a connection to the COA, your risk is steering that with the current information versus letting new ideas come in there.
I would agree, Dave. You don't want to limit the board's opportunity to make decisions based on information. But according to our bylaws, we have to have a set scope. We have to have a definition. We are not the Congress. We do not go on fishing expeditions. There is a reason that we go out and do research. So I think the reason I picked these 3 things are, one, the COA board recognized, and all of us commissioners recognize that there's no appetite or very little appetite for higher taxes in regards to the COA operations. So we can't just leave the Commission on Aging out there to fend for themselves. They need a little leadership from this board. So let's help them find some options that are pro-taxpayer and what Commissioner Gibson has brought up time and again, are sustainable financially. We need to find facility options that they can afford to fix down the road. Because when the people have a millage, they are under the assumption that this is going to take care of the problem. 2, senior services offered, I should say in other counties, but 2 other counties, I guess is technically correct. Just what are other folks doing out there? What do other county boards do? I don't foresee, if I were to be on the committee, I would hope it would be just a data sheet. Do they have a millage? Do they offer adult daycare? Do they have Meals on Wheels? Just a checklist. And maybe we'll see some outlying services that we could investigate further. And third, marketing branding trends in senior service center facilities. Getting old is tough. I know from experience, I'm not the 22-year-old commissioner I used to be. But we want to be sensitive and inclusive to seniors that are looking for an active lifestyle. And we want the name of the facility to reflect, healthier, more active lifestyles. So that's why I put it out there. I think it covers keeping taxes low, covers data from surrounding or other Michigan counties, and it looks at how we invest in the future.
Commissioner Connor?
I know your heart's in the right spot, Ben, but I do not want to tell the COA about budgeting and how to afford to staff and maintain their projects. They have a board, they have a good director that, as we've heard from Colleen's presentation today, that they take care of that issue, and I just, that wording, the COA can afford to staff and maintain. That's not what this, I don't think this ad hoc is about. I think this ad hoc is about the building part.
Right.
So I just don't like that wording, because they do a very good job with their millage money that they get for operations, and that just,
Right.
I don't like that.
I understand that, and I appreciate that. And this is not a statement again about the COA. This is to limit the options down that the ad hoc committee would come from or present. If we look at Kalamazoo County, when they did their new jail or had this proposal, there were additional staffing requirements. And so they had options all presented, and people said, I want that one. But there was a caveat that if you do this, you're going to have to pay for more staff. I just put that as a backstop against the need for more revenue. So it's not meant as a slight or to a statement on the board members, but I'd be happy to entertain or hear your ideas for different language that accomplish the kind of the goals I'm looking for.
You could just put in there, I think that the ad hoc can, I'm thinking.
So I'm going to offer my 2 cents.
Thank
and
you.
I tend to concur with Commissioner Jackson and Connor in that I believe this language hamstrings our ad hoc committee and forces them to focus mainly on that new building or better senior services facility. And I think that's not the scope or the intent of why the motion came to us in the first place. When the ad hoc committee studied the health department, we did not have an end with recommendations. It was study the different health departments and report back what you find with counties of like size. And I think that's what the original motion was, is to study counties around us, to see what the senior services were, see how their programs worked, maybe look at their facilities. I don't think the intent was to come back with a plan on how to do something without a millage. So I would not support the motion to amend. I would vote against it at this time.
Mayor? A couple of things. I'm going to defend myself here. Let's go back to the TOAST ad hoc committee. It actually had a resolution that specified all of the items that the ad hoc committee was responsible for. This, without without an amendment, is just mushy. it's unclear. We're going to make a motion on the fly to investigate the senior service center on some topics we all might agree on. We need more definitive scope. I mean, this is just basic stuff. I don't want to go back to, I don't want to see a report from a committee and not have them know what we sent them out there to do. So with all due respect, Madam Chair, if you don't like the substitute plan, I would challenge you to present a better scope of responsibilities.
Substitute A just with research funding sources and accomplish the same thing. Be appropriate, I think, and the whole research thing is knowing how other counties fund their COA. So that if you just said research funding sources, you'd basically probably appropriate for that investigation.
Thank you.
That would be automatic, I think, in the original, but I still think that I would hope that then with the ad hoc committee, regardless of which motion you're going with, would take somebody from the Commission on Aging Board along to kind of determine why maybe this may not work in that area or not work in that area.
Dan,
if you're gonna come up with if it's just gonna be a report, fine, but if the report is supposed to be leading to a conclusion, then I think
I was just trying to provide clarity because I saw this going down the tracks a little too fast. Madam Chair, I withdraw my motion.
I think, taking off Ben's motion.
You concur? Because you second?
I would, if you drop.
On the original amendment, do you concur with removing the motion? Because you seconded it.
Yes.
Then the motion has been removed. We can continue with discussing the original motion.
I would propose an amendment to the motion, approval to create an ad hoc committee to study the Commission on Aging services, funding, and facilities as compared to other counties and report back to the commissioners.
Support.
Motion to amend by Jackson, support by Gibson. Do you have that written so we can read it back?
Sorta.
I was going to say, can you say that again? Just
Approval to create an ad hoc committee to study the Commission on Aging services, funding, and facilities as compared to other counties and report back to the commissioners.
Is that comparable sized counties or just other counties,
Just
period?
other counties.
Just other counties, we don't know. Could be Michigan, Indiana, I don't know.
So, and that includes what we're trying to accomplish, which is take a look at how we can improve the facilities, funding mechanisms and services provided, and it all starts here.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
said compare to other.
As compared
Okay.
with other counties.
We need somebody there that knows what's happening at our own COA. So you can compare what we have compared to there. We don't know probably all the services that are provided.
They have a list.
Well, that may be true, but if you got somebody there, you know whether some of those are practical or not for making it happen. So that's all, I would just trust that this ad hoc committee would get our people involved that have had years of experience here to make sure that it's stuff that we haven't already looked at before, so. I mean, we took field trips. It took us a lot of field trips and a lot of time and effort to go out there. And if we didn't have Michael Brown with us on those trips, there was a lot of questions we wouldn't have got answered. or asked. And that's why I think it's important to have somebody from the COA on there. So,
You also had a set scope of what you were doing before you set out to do it.
Did you take anybody from our health department with you?
Nope.
no, we didn't, but well, sort of did. We had questions afterwards, and we called and asked, so.
But you
Guess
didn't
you
take
could
them
do
with
that.
you?
Huh?
You didn't take them with you?
No,
Or you
but-
said sort of, that's why I was,
Well, we got, sometimes we called them directly from where we were at, so, but,
I see this being I see the COA being intricately involved in this, that we're gonna be back and forth with them on a regular basis. And I think the ad hoc committee at their discretion has the ability to bring somebody from that board along or with them as well. So I don't think we're gonna limit it, I just don't think we can decide that today until after, we don't even know who's on the committee right now, so.
yeah, right. I'll go along with it, I'm not gonna, die on my sword from it, but I just think that's, for whoever's gonna be on the ad hoc committee, I think that's important that you have communication, close communication with our own people too.
Any other discussion?
Madam Chair, I'm going to vote against this because I think it's going to get everybody confused. It's going to rile up the staff of the COA, and it's not going to guarantee that we resolve the biggest question for the COA is how do we get into a new and better space than we can afford. So that's why I'm going to vote against it.
and why don't you think it would do that?
Because we're making a motion we're making a committee to study just a realm of stuff. And to quote my good friend Dan there, we just have to trust that it's going to resolve the questions. I'm sorry, I've been in state and local government too long that I know if you don't set the scope of what you are supposed to do and where you are supposed to go to find this information, it's just going to lead to more questions. And I don't think it's fair to the senior community to have such a unguided Board of Commissioners in such an important topic.
I think that the commissioners that are appointed to this ad hoc will deliver the same services and that the ad hoc committee for,
You think,
yeah, I think.
but they're not required to.
I think our commissioners all put a good faith in doing their jobs, and they do their jobs well.
I just think that in this case, the job should be described. I think this committee needs a job description.
I got something to say.
Yes, sir.
I don't think you want any limitations on what they can find out.
Yeah.
You're trying to handcuff them on what they're gonna go and find out if you have limitations.
There's a difference between micromanaging and giving basic directions. I think you need to give them a compass at least of where to go, a list of things that they need to describe or come back with, which is what our bylaws actually request. We can break our bylaws whenever we want, but I don't have anything else to say on this. I think it's going to create more problems or
Can you
more
read
questions than answers.
Sorry, Ben. Can you read that again? What direction you want it to give?
Approval to create an ad hoc committee to study the Commission on Aging services, funding, and facilities as compared with other counties and report back to the commissioners.
That was moved by Jackson, supported by Gibson. On the amendment, is there any further discussion? Dan?
You want to put a time limit on it. I think studies can go and go and go.
They can. We did have a time limit for the Health Department Ad Hoc Committee. We did have to extend that. We had some extenuating circumstances around the holidays. I also know that we are getting into a very busy season for some of us. Do we want to give 6 months?
No, I can't be.
do we want to, 6 months would put us to September 1st, or the end of September.
That's reasonable.
So what you're,
So if you get done early, you can report early, but that would be like a deadline.
so then what we're saying is we're not gonna
shoot
try to
for.
put the millage for COA for this September.
I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying that this ad
Well,
hoc
I'm
committee
just-
needs
it's
to
a-
study
Things out.
what goes on in other communities in regards to senior services.
The letter from the COA asked that we find them a facility without a millage.
Yep,
Any
Okay.
other discussion?
thought I'd bring that up.
So on the amendment,
Maybe that amendment should say that we should study other counties' services, funding, and building.
it implies that when you compared to other,
It's
It's
a little
implied.
backwards. It's a little backwards. I mean, when he read it again, it sounds like we're studying what our COA does. But I think what we want to do is study what other COAs do. How do they fund their programs? And how did they acquire building space? How did they do that without and those especially that did it without millages?
so if we change the words to study Commission on Aging Services in other counties compared to
Right.
Berry County.
I can tell you how that's going to come out. County A has a better facility than us. County B has a better facility than us. And it's just going to be a list without any solutions.
Maker of the motion, would you agree to that friendly amendment, or, okay. So the amendment would read, approval to create an ad hoc committee to study the Commission on Aging Services in other counties compared to the Berry County Commission on Aging, Berry County Commission on Aging Services, funding, and facilities. Let me try again. Approval to create an ad hoc committee to study the Commission on Aging Services funding, and facilities in other counties compared to the Berry County Commission on Aging, and report back to the commissioners within 6 months. Sound okay?
Ben, what do you find wrong with that?
That it is a sentence written by hand on a piece of paper by the chair that has no real scope and definition. There's a lot of implications, things that are implied in there, using our chair's words. Vivian, I think this is just a,
Well, those were my words. She just wrote them down for me. I have a little issue with that today.
it's lipstick on a pig. I don't think it's going to work. And it doesn't earn my support. You don't have to earn
Any
my
other
vote.
discussion on the
I just
amendment?
trust
You
that-
have not been recognized by the floor to continue your comments, sir.
I just trust that this ad hoc committee is going to make themselves very familiar with all the activities that our commission does now, and all the different ways within this county that it can be funded without a millage, and that they will do the same thing as far as checking out the different funding for other I just trust that's going to happen. And I think that our people here are smart enough that they'll make sure that they cover all of their things that they have to cover.
So on the amendment, is there any more discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote on the amendment to approve, for the approval of an ad hoc committee to study the Commission on Aging Services, funding, and facilities in other counties compared to the Berry County Commission on Aging, and report back to the commissioners within 6 months. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
No.
The amendment is approved. Any discussion on the agenda item?
The agenda item.
So we amended the agenda item. We approved the amendment. Now we need to vote on the agenda item.
Bring up my other thing. We need representatives from
So the question before the board is the approval to create an ad hoc committee to study the Commission on Aging services, funding, and facilities of other counties compared to the Berry County Commission on Aging and report back to the commissioners within 6 months. All those are I need a roll call, please.
Wait a second. And how, so if we've already voted on
We
what?
voted on the amendment,
The
which was
amendment.
to change the thing.
Okay, all
So
right.
that had to be
All right,
approved.
okay.
Then we had discussion on the
Okay,
main,
got it.
the main issue, and now we need to have a roll call vote.
Smoker.
Yes.
Connor.
Yes.
Geiger.
No.
Gibson.
Yes.
Jackson.
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
Wayne.
Yes, the item is approved. Unfinished business, we have none. New business, I don't have anything. County Administrator's report.
I'm all set, thank you.
Chairperson's report. Finally done with this month's meetings. Had a lot of extra days off due to snow days, which really weren't up my alley, but you know, when you get up to go to work, you get up to go to work. So Commissioner Connor, thank you for joining us.
Sorry, I missed last week. Between our board meetings, I did attend our my township meetings in Prairieville, and I also attended the forum that was at Johnstown Township. That was a great meeting down there. I thought that the individuals that spoke for their teams gave really concise direction on how they felt the projects should go and the buildings. And I just really appreciated their attention to all the details.
Thank
That's
you. Commissioner Gibson?
Yes, at Hastings Township, they approved streetlights for the corner of Sundago Park and River Road. Brad Lambert gave a report on the 2020 planned road work. At the Mental Health Board meeting, Ellen Boulder, Associate Director of the Community Mental Health Association, gave an update on the budget. We talked about strategic goals for 2020. We talked about building issues. Lighthouse on the Lake MSU Extension is coming to the center every other Wednesday for sessions on stressless with mindfulness. This will continue through May. The state of Michigan is extending the health and wellness grant for 2 more years, along with a $2,500 transportation grant for Lighthouse on the Lake. Friday, March the 20th, Berry County Youth Summit will be at Gun Lake Community Church. At my transit board meeting, the transit from February 2019 till February 2020 took 1,623 passengers to the COA, plus 1 from Dalton and 1 from Middleville each day. I think the COA should stay in Hastings. With those kind of numbers being hauled, most of those were from right here in town that were hauled to the COA. There was other folks that come to the COA, but they drove their cars in. The phone system has been updated. Software has also been updated. We have a new driver. David Stoner is working towards his CDL and learning routes. The transportation director is preparing a grant application for funding to replace 7 buses. This opportunity would completely refurbish the fleet and provide better capacity. The transit received their annual audit draft for fiscal year 2019. There were no deficiencies noted. The transit has taken delivery of 2 new 2020 medium-duty buses with 2 additional due later this week. Advertising has already been reserved for the 4 buses. I attended the community forum at Johnstown Township on February the 13th on the jail and COA. I also attended the forum on Middleville February the 18th. I also attended the COA meeting on February the 18th. I will be attending the Walk for Warmth, the community action program this Saturday at 9:30 at Green Street Church. After the city council meeting last night, they approved the request for Steve Raydant, WBCH, to hold the annual WBCH South Jefferson Street St. Patrick's Day Parade on Tuesday, March the 17th. I left that meeting and went to another meeting last night. I went to the zoning meeting because they were proposing a dog park in my district, so I wanted to keep up on what's going on in my district, so I went to that meeting. I was very impressed with our zoning officials. They asked a lot of real important questions for somebody being put in a kind of a business in our area. And I was real impressed with the questions they asked, and that's all I have.
Commissioner Geiger,
I'm good.
Commissioner Smoker,
Attended 911 yesterday. The new CAD system is up and running. The changeover was very smooth compared to what we thought it would be. Airport meeting is tomorrow, and Health Department Thursday. And that's it. I attended transit with Hoot, but he went through everything.
Commissioner Jackson.
Actually had a fairly calm month. Neither the JPA or the animal shelter met this month. Economic development meeting, a lot of that centered around the introduction of Jennifer Heitzman. A lot of excitement for her. She comes highly recommended. Like I said, she was chosen out of 70-some applicants, so she's getting started. We also spent a lot of time on the brownfield assessment grants. We have $300,000 awarded to Berry County, so we now have selected SME as the assessment, helping us process those assessment grants. We're just getting started with that, so that board's very busy. And then our health board meeting will be this Thursday in Charlotte, so we can attend that. Also attended the community forum. So.
Thank you, sir. Parker.
Yeah, attended the February 13th meeting or 18th meeting and 13th meeting for the forum. Appreciate all that came out to Middleville to see that, and basically big support for COA there, and just can't think of anything right now that is important. I think one thing that I could mention to you that was surprising, but Dwayne Weeks is resigning as village manager in Middleville. So sad. He was really good at what he does, and yeah, he just said it was time. So, and that's about it.
Thank you, commissioners. Any limited public comment?
Bob Vanderbilt, Hastings Township. I attended the forum at Johnstown Township here a couple weeks ago, and at the end of the meeting, one of the participants in the audience brought up an interesting point, I thought, in terms of we're going to be asked to vote for millages on something, but how do we know what it is that we're voting for? We don't have any numbers or anything, and I think what you're doing here is a very important task in this whole thing. And one of the things that concerned me about the Tower Pinkster information is that their minimum number on anything to do with the jail was $20 million. And in the past, I recall that we had 3 or 4 different proposals, I don't know how long ago it was, a year or 2 ago, from different architects had built jails in different counties and everything. It seems to me like we had significant lower numbers than that for a jail facility, and so basically what I'm presenting to you is some of my concerns, answers to questions that I have, which I think are the same questions a lot of other people have, and that is, what have we done to research? And we've got Tower Pinkster involved here. And pardon me for saying it, but I think they're looking for a job. But other than that, there's other information out there that we've already gotten in the past, and I just want to encourage you to revisit that information and let us know as taxpayers how that compares to everything we're looking at in terms of the jail. One of the issues in my mind with the jail, and this is only my own personal opinion, and I have not done any research to verify any of this, but I guess looking at existing facilities in the area to build a jail, no question we need it. But for instance, and I guess a lot of you have already toured the old Hastings fiberglass facility. I've looked at it online. Nice looking offices, but the question I have in my mind is, are those offices usable for a new jail? What would be the cost of replicating those offices on another facility? What is the, there's a price tag on that piece of property. Does buying that piece of property at a listed price and getting those offices already built, does that wash? In other words, if we bought that piece of property, would we already have those offices basically for the price of the piece of property? What is the cost of taking away the unusable portion of that piece of property, the value of the usable portions of that piece of property? And I don't see that Tower Pinkster is any way involved in all of that. And that's certainly, I'm looking at it from a millage standpoint. And I'm very appreciative of COA taking this posture of doing something without a millage. And, it's, I guess the other thing that's in the back of my mind is we've got a school system that we've got a new superintendent that I believe has done all he can without raising any taxes or asking for any more millages to deal with some of the maintenance issues in those buildings. I have had personally the opportunity over the last month to spend quite a bit of time in each one of the elementary schools, and I can tell you that there are definitely things in those buildings that need fixing that, just over time have worn out. I mean, you could walk through the carpets in the floor in those elementary schools, you could trip over the ragged edges on the carpet. That's how bad it is. But anyway, we need to look at what it is from a tax standpoint, how we can most economically deal with these issues that are facing us, and be reasonable with. And I know you're all interested in doing that, but those are just questions that I have in my mind, and would like to see some exposure to the public that kind of research and that is happening, and that if it's not going to work, why it is, so I can go away and not think about that anymore, think about something else, So anyway, that's just my opinion.
Any other limited public comment this morning?
I just want you to know I'm taking part of my lunch right now, so I am Colleen Acker, citizen. I would like to urge whoever is in charge of organizing the ad hoc committee to include Tammy Pennington on that committee. There are so many different types of commission on aging. So there's councils on aging. They're all organized very differently. And I'm just speaking from experience in going to the Michigan Association of Senior Centers conference every year, and meeting all those different directors and activity coordinators. And actually right now they are in the process of trying to put together profiles of all the different senior centers in Michigan so that they can provide a face for what senior centers look like in Michigan. And they are all very different. So I hope that you will consider having Tammy's input in that committee. And I appreciate Commissioner Geiger and Commissioner Wing for your input on that whole thing. And I appreciate both of your points of view. Thank you.
Any other limited public comment? Hearing none, is there any other business to come before this board? Where did I get my sheet? There being no further business and without objection, the board will now adjourn.